Hi, we're back from AmericanElgin.com, and today we'll be talking about a very special model of the 27 jewel self-winding Elgin watches that were made between 1959 and 1963, and that is the letter E model. And this is these generally come in case number 4430, but also there's also apparently a second case 6911 that comes with this line. These are solid 10 karat gold watches that were made in Elgin, Illinois at the famous Maine plant. And this is one of the better known and more famous versions. And this was also the most expensive of the Elgin 27 jewel watches. So this has a beautiful case that's made by Jonell Watch Case Company out of New York. And you can see the characteristic J with the arrow design, which they use. And this was a very, very substantial and quite expensive watch when it was new. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then we have another version that I will just mention briefly at the moment. We'll talk more about later. And this is another one with a rather unique dial, different than most of the other 27 jewel Elgins. We'll talk about that later. And that is the same 27 jewel case made by Jonell Watch Case Company. Same case 4430. Now, these watches, I would argue that this heavy, substantial, thick 10 karat gold case and the price would mark these as being the king of the 27 jewel Elgin line. And we'll first talk about the black dial version, which is a rather stunning, very attractive watch. You can see here there's period advertising for this. So this is an ad from the time period. And this is, you can see it's Elgin 27 jewel Thin-Thin Model E, self-winding, shockproof, 10 karat gold waterproof case. You can see this is the exact same watch. At $125, as mentioned, this was the most expensive of the 27 jewel Elgin watches and one of only a couple that were made with a solid gold case. Now you might think $125 is like very cheap for a solid gold watch. In today's money, that would be true. But as we talked about in previous videos, 1960, the price of gold was pegged to the US dollar at a rate of 35 US dollars to 1 ounce of gold. Today, an ounce of gold is over $3,000. So of course you could never get a solid gold watch today for anywhere near $125. It could even be 100 times that much, as kind of relative to how much gold has gone up in value. But also people made a lot less money back then, or maybe a different way of saying it is the US dollar was worth a lot more. So for example, in 1960, when this watch was being sold, minimum wage was $1 an hour. So if you made double minimum wage, you made $2 an hour. So you can imagine how many hours somebody would have to work, even with a decent wage, to buy this kind of watch. And around that time, the average salary, or the average American employee made $50 a week. And that was quite a lot of money back then, but today it's not, but that just gives you a relative idea of what these watches cost. Now these watches, like all the 27 and 30 jewel automatics, they have a movement inside that is the only American designed and made full rotor automatic movement. And what that means is inside the watch, there's the movement, the gears, and then there is a pendulum, a winding mechanism that is like a half moon shape that rotates 360 degrees around through held up with a central pivot point when you walk around or you move, and it winds the watch for you. So you do not need to use the crown, this little knob here on the right side, to wind the watch. And these were the only, Elgin made the only American designed and made full rotor automatic movements. And 10 years earlier, they had also made a different line of automatic movements that were not full rotor. They were partial rotor, or what were called bumper automatics. And those were also the only versions ever made by a US company. So Elgin was in the forefront of this technology. And these are just beautiful and very rare examples of this. Now we've talked about the black dial version, which personally is my favorite. There's another version that we don't have an image of, but we can, an example of, we can show you an image of that. And that is this particular watch here. It has a little bit different dial, and we'll just pull this up a little bit so we can take a look at it. So you can see that this is the same Thin-Thin 27E, self-winding 10 karat gold, 27 jewel movement, and you can see the price is also $125. So we'll zoom in a bit. And you can, this is what the watch looks like, except it has a golden dial instead of black, and obviously the hour markers and so on are different. So that's the second version. We unfortunately do not have an example to show you of that. Again, these are all very, very rare watches. They don't come up very often. You might see these for sale maybe once a year. You'll see an example of one, if that, maybe twice. It's hard to say, but they're very rare. They don't show up very often. These were very expensive when they were new, these watches. I'll show you a third example of this watch, which is also an E model, and this has a different case. So it's case number, it's case 4430, although the examples of this watch also appear in advertising with case number 6911. So that's the other version of the case that came with these watches. And you can see this one is completely different. It has the 12369 hour markers and so on. We also do not have an example of this in real life to show you, but this is a third example of this Model E watch. We can also talk now about a watch which is kind of a mystery. It's an interesting watch. It certainly has the correct case, which is the 4430 case, but the dial is completely different than what you see in the advertising, and it's different than what you see really on most other American-made 27 jewel Elgins. This is the dial does appear, it's possible that it's a redial, that somebody took a dial and modified it, or maybe it was a dial for a different watch, although it does look like certainly like an original Elgin dial. It's very high quality, and these hour numerals are something which you see in other Elgin 27 jewel watches of the time period. The interesting fact is that it doesn't have all the writing that you typically see. It just says Elgin self-winding. Now, one caveat to that, and as I said, this could be a redial. It could be just a dial that was repaired by somebody or modified. But I think based on the quality, I don't think that's the case. It's a very high quality dial, and even the Elgin font, for example, Elgin self-winding, this is absolutely correct for what it's supposed to look like. But I will show you an example of a different 27 jewel watch. So this is not the watch that we're talking about, but it is another 27 jewel Elgin, and this is the ultra rare Model S, which was like the very end of the line for these watches. This is an ad from the end of 1962 for this watch. And this watch is a 27 jewel Model S Elgin. We don't have a real life example of it, but as you can see, if you look at the dial of this S model, it only has two words, Elgin self-winding, and that is the same as we have here, Elgin self-winding. So could this be a watch from the very end of the production of line of these watches? Well, it's possible, and I think there's a suggestion that could be the case. If we look at the back of this watch, it says here the name of someone's name, Tom Brown, and the year 1963. So potentially this is a watch that came out sort of towards, I don't want to say the chaos of the last years of Elgin when they were producing watches, but certainly this is the time when they were winding down production of these 2730 jewel watches. They were introducing some Swiss imported watches with 25 jewels, and so it's certainly possible that this went out with this original dial, and it is the correct dial. But it's a bit of a mystery. Nonetheless, it is a very, very attractive watch. It has these numerals are just gorgeous, very period, early 1960s, and has sort of this kind of circular, concentric circles, kind of a rotated circles kind of dial. It's just very, very attractive, very nice looking watch. Now we can talk for a minute about what makes these watches special. So just apart from the fact that they're made in the US and they're the only American designed and made self-winding watches, automatic watches, which is a major technological feat, Elgin was known for its extremely high quality. So these watches, these 2730 jewel watches, they are considered to be chronometer quality, which means of the quality of a chronometer. Chronometer is a watch which is designed to be precise to an extremely rigorous standard of a deviation of maybe a few seconds a day at most, a couple of seconds. And so, for example, you see Rolex is a chronometer, it has it in a dial. These are chronometer quality, and that's according to the world's leading watch database, the RANFT database, which was run by a German watch expert, the leading expert on watches in the movements of the world, probably Dr. Roland Ranft. You can see that these watches were made, as you can see, the dials are very high quality, the movements are very high quality. These were just a very nice high-end luxury watch that was being sold. And interestingly, this particular version of the 27 jewel, as mentioned, was the most expensive of the 27 jewel watches. And it actually cost more than some of the solid gold Lord Elgin 30 jewel, which are the upper division of Elgin, or the top division of Elgin. So Elgin was sort of the standard division, and this was sort of the top of the standard division, and it cost more than some of the lower priced solid gold in the top division, which was Lord Elgin, sort of the top brand that they had. If you'd like any more information on these watches, please we welcome you to check out AmericanElgin.com, and also check out the other videos on YouTube. We're covering a lot of these watches, and we'll be having more videos coming up on different 27 and 30 jewel automatics from Elgin. Thank you.